Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the video. I hope your day is going great. Mine's been awesome. Heck, I hope you guys had an amazing Christmas. Mine was, it was long, but it was great. Anyways, today we are continuing the countdown. We have number 17. The fourth worst Overwatch League team is going to be the Florida Mayhem. Now, very similar to number 18, the Boston Uprising, I really struggled with this pick. There are so many different teams that could have been at this rank, but I am going to pick the Florida Mayhem. And throughout this video, I am going to be giving my main reasons as to why I think they aren't going to do very good next season. If you guys don't know what the series is, I am basically counting down the worst to best Overwatch League teams, one by one in every single video. So if you're interested in staying updated on my power rankings list, be sure to subscribe to my channel, drop a like on this video, and now without further ado, let's go ahead and talk about the Florida Mayhem and why they are ranked number 17. Florida. So I want to start this video out just like I did with the Boston Uprising one, and I want to look at Season 1 for the Florida Mayhem. Now, unlike the Uprising, Florida Mayhem had a terrible Season 1. They were basically the Western Shanghai Dragons, which was basically the only team they were able to beat all season. And I know we all remember that Stage 4 match between Florida and Shanghai. They could have lost it, and they also could have lost other matches against Shanghai. So Florida Mayhem easily was one of the worst teams in the league, and if Shanghai Dragons did not exist, Florida Mayhem would have been the worst without a doubt. And if anyone would have said that before Season 1 started, you would have got roasted by the entire community. Going into Season 1, Florida Mayhem was super strong. They had the best European team, Misfits, Tavik, Maniton, Zupe, Zeboside. These guys have been dominating EU for the past 2 years. But to be honest, I don't feel like the main issue was the roster at the beginning. Sure, going into Season 1 with 6 players and no subs was a little dumb, you know? Logix might have been a god going into the Overwatch League, but let's be honest, players are prone to burning out and breaking down. And that's exactly what happened to the players of Florida Mayhem. They completely burned out and crashed at the beginning of the season, and this snowballed into the team pretty much losing almost every game they had. Sure, they looked okay at some points because they did get some good signings during the mid-season. Adding Sayaplayer and Awesome Guy somewhat helped out, mainly just Sayaplayer, but even with his insane play on some games, they would still lose. And this all leads me to the main issue during Season 1 for the Florida Mayhem, which is their management. They are the ones who put these players and that team in that position. They had one coach, literally one coach. Find me an Overwatch League team that has one coach, guys. Yeah, you can't, because it's non-existent. You can't have an Overwatch League team with one coach and 6 players. Whoever decided that is delusional. And oh, by the way, they had Tavik driving the bus about an hour every day to the stadium and back to their house because they couldn't get a house close enough in Burbank to the Overwatch League. They had to live far away because the organization wanted to save money, which is why they only got 6 players, which is why they only had one coach to start off with. And then as soon as the management realized, oh crap, we're the worst team in the league, we suck, they decided, okay, let's maybe add a coach or two. Let's go find some players. And what do? They found like these budget Koreans. Like, really? You signed Awesome Guy. Why didn't you go out and try to trade for a really good main tank in the league like the LA Gladiators did for Fisher? Try to get Yanis from the New York Excelsior, or sign someone like Factor Fiction who was looking for a team at the time. Instead, they decide to sign a guy who is unheard of, Awesome Guy. He didn't even play in contenders ever. He was a budget Korean that played on really low tier North American teams, and when he replaced Swoosh, that's exactly what we got. Budget play. Sure, I get it. Sayaplayer did pop off. He was great. His Widowmaker was insane, but he still wasn't known as one of the best Korean players at the time. Now let's talk about the coaches a little bit more. Halfway into the season, Mineral, who was their head coach going into the season, was the only coach, also burned out. He was like, I can't do this anymore. I need a break. My mental health is deteriorating. My real health is deteriorating. I don't know what to do, so I need to take a break from coaching. He disappeared, stopped coaching the team. Makes sense. I don't have any hate for Mineral. If I joined the Overwatch League and I was the only coach for a team and we completely sucked because our management underpaid us and we didn't have great resources or anything like that, shoot, I would want a break too. I would hate my life. You have no subs. You have the same 6 players who are tilted and are burning out. How do you not burn out yourself? That's crazy. Florida, they picked up a second coach called Ryder from Korea, and apparently, according to Logix, this guy even refused at times to coach the players because they were making too many mistakes. Yes, guys, you heard me right. He decided not to coach the team because they were making too many mistakes. Wow. And I know this kind of sounds like let's go ahead and roast Florida Mayhem Season 1 management, because all I'm doing is talking about how they mismanaged their team. But I really do believe that is the main factor as to why this team completely failed last season. And overall, the management is pretty similar. They still have the same owner, they still have the same coaches. So I feel like going into Season 2, why do you expect things to be different if the same guys are in charge? I know they did sign Bare Hands over from New York Excelsior, but that's just one guy. I don't know how much he can do for an organization. So my biggest issue for Florida Mayhem is the fact that they kept their same exact management going into the next season. They completely failed the team in Season 1. Why is it going to work out in Season 2? Now let's start transitioning into the offseason and what Florida Mayhem decided to do with the roster. Because from the outside looking in, you might think, hey, they made some improvements here and there. You know, Zephyr, decent off tank, he comes from Seoul Dynasty. Hogopin, he played for the London Spitfire half the season. He really had some good moments too, right? They still have Sayaplayer, who has incredible potential on that Widowmaker. And they got rid of their terrible backline, Zupe, Zebosai, and their awful main tank, Swoosh. Sounds good so far, right? Well, yeah, it is pretty good. And I think this is a big improvement from last season, especially their backline, their supports. They now have Chris and Hogopin. That is huge compared to Zupe and Zebosai. And that 100% without a doubt is where they made the biggest improvement. Their backline. Those supports will make wonders of a difference compared to their old guys. But then once you start comparing them to the other Overwatch League backlines, they're still not that great. Just because they're so much better than last season's backline doesn't mean they're better than the current ones in the Overwatch League. If we wanted to rank the Florida Mayhem's backline compared to everybody else's backline in the league, I'd put them around like 10 to 13, maybe 14. And that's the highlight of this team. Remember, guys, yes, Sayaplayer is great, but he was only great on Widowmaker. We're in a meta right now where Widowmaker isn't that good. Sure, you can play it on some maps here and there, and I'm sure he'll pop off, but that doesn't guarantee they will win. Because he popped off last season, remember? They didn't win. So if you're an Overwatch League team and the biggest improvement you made was your supports, but they're still ranked around 10 to 14, I don't think you've made very good moves this offseason. Now, I'm sure some of you guys might disagree and not think that the supports was the biggest upgrade during the offseason, so let's go ahead and move on and talk about the other moves that this team made. Let's talk more about Zephyr. He played for Seoul Dynasty during Season 1. He got some playtime. Zumba was definitely the number one guy over there, but I guess when Zumba needed a break, Zephyr would come in. I think he had some games where he played pretty decent. You would think, oh, this guy's not bad, right? But then there were also a lot of games where it seemed like he was playing just average, not really that great, but it's hard to tell when someone's playing D.Va if they're doing good or not, especially when they're on a team that's losing a lot. So someone could use the argument that Zephyr isn't very good because he never had any really high performance games, but also people could use the argument that, oh, he was on a team that wasn't playing very good when he was in, so you don't know how good he is. But regardless, he's still a random variable and we don't know how he's going to perform. And honestly, he's replacing Manitin, who I think was the best player besides Sayaplayer on this team during Season 1. He was the most consistent, he was always doing his job, and you could tell, even though he was on a terrible team, that he was putting in work for them. Which is really hard to tell how good a D.Va is when their team completely sucks, so all respect to Manitin for that. So I think I rest my case with Zephyr, saying he's not really going to provide that much of an impact, and he'll just be another off tank in the league. Now let's move on to the DPS, because I find this part of the team very hilarious. And let's just get Tavik out of the way real quick, just because, you know, he's probably not going to play a single second this season because the whole entire team is Korean. Despite Florida Mayhem saying, oh, we're not going to go full Korean. We won't, we promise. I mean, I guess. You want to count Tavik, the only player who isn't Korean on your roster, as the team being non-Korean, then sure, I guess you're right, huh? I find that one of the funniest things of this entire offseason. Florida Mayhem really tried to tell their entire fan base that they weren't going to go full Korean because they're keeping Tavik on the bench the entire season and he'll probably be driving the bus for them. We're not all Korean. Okay. So, I got that out of the way. Let's move on now. Obviously, they have Sayaplayer who they kept from last season. I talked a little bit about his Widowmaker. It's great, but he's unproven when it comes to other heroes. His McCree, sure, he had a couple of highlights here and there. His Tracer, I don't think he had any highlights on that, so again, I'm a little worried about his other heroes. If he can only play Widowmaker at a high level and decently on McCree, I don't think he's going to be that great of a player because this season looks like you're going to have to be versatile, and I don't know if he is a very versatile player. He's got great aim, But versatility? I don't know, I don't see it in his hero pool yet, so that's a question mark. Moving on now to the next player, we have BQB, who honestly, I'm pretty excited to see join the Overwatch League. He competed for X6 Gaming during Season 1 of Korea Contenders, and he played very well. He helped them win a championship that season. They defeated the best teams at the time, Runaway, O2 Ardiant, and going into the next season of Korean Contenders, guess what? X6 Gaming didn't do that good. They didn't win. They lost in the first round of the playoff, and guess what? BQB didn't play for them, so that's the main reason I'm excited to see him in the Overwatch League. I feel like he had a huge impact on X6 Gaming's run during Season 1 of Contenders Korea, and I think he could maybe be a star player of the league, but honestly, I see him sitting in a position that Addo did last season. You're really good, but your team sucks, so it's going to be really hard. And overall, I don't know how much of an upgrade he will be over Logix. I think Logix was a good player for the Florida Mayhem. Sure, he had his lows, but most of the time he was on his highs. Overall, I think BQB has the biggest potential of anybody on this roster, but also has a chance to not be very good because obviously the management and the rest of the players he's surrounded by are not the greatest. And real quick, let's mention their main tank, which is S&T, aka Awesome Guy from last season, who I talked about earlier, who wasn't that great of an upgrade. He didn't do that good, and his experience is pretty much little to none. He played for North American teams and Tier 3, not even in Contenders before he joined the league, so I don't see much potential in their main tank role at all. If BQB comes out and pops the heck off and the backline of this team is carrying, maybe they can be decent, maybe a top 12 team, possibly top 10 or 11. Then again, I just remember the management and how bad they were in Season 1, and that's the biggest reason why I'm placing these guys at number 17. So be sure to comment down below letting me know if you guys agree or disagree. That's going to be it for me. Florida Mayhem at number 17. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. I'm out of here, guys. Peace.